to the ashes. The spirits light up the night. Looking down.
Now, from the Untold Radio Network, it's Untold Radio AM with Doug and Alex Hychak.
Yodi Yodi. Hello,
Hey.
Alex. Hello, live audience. Untold Radio AM Wednesday, June. Let me get this right. 5th.
Yes. Yes.
2024, even though the year. Isn't that amazing? So tonight we have an awesome main guest. He's kind of a big deal.
He is.
He's a big deal. I shouldn't say kind of. He is a big deal. Jimmy Akins is with us tonight from Mysterious World.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Huge place. We're gonna get into his head, right?
Oh yeah. We're gonna go deep.
Well, he's brilliant, and that should make for a really interesting conversation. He really is brilliant, and I do mean that. Then we have a bonus guest with some breaking news, Bigfoot news
I'm excited.
tonight. I take it you have that all lined up.
Yes, I do.
I'm not going to say who or what, but it is very interesting. Okay, we are, I think, recovered from the Marionette Conference in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Eastern,
Yes, I think.
beautiful Eastern Wisconsin, where we almost died twice. It was either us or the geese, but Blaine saved the geese.
We had to make that call.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm in the back seat, right? I don't know what's going on. And that truck is so big that I can't see out I can't see out the back, can't see out the sides. All I know is the brakes are coming to a screech from 70 down to 0. And I do see a whole family of geese just nonchalantly crossing the road.
Yes.
There's a big line of them. I mean, there must have been 20 kids, right?
20, 30. Yeah.
What do you call a baby? It's a goslin?
A train of geese.
It was a train of geese, but he slammed on the brakes and came to a complete stop. And I'm in the back seat going, okay, we're dead. I'm dead. This is not going to work. We're on 94, right? Heading west. And that's one of the busiest freeways in America.
It is.
Big trucking thing. So I'm just like, we're dead. Somehow, God saved everybody. The geese, apparently Blaine knew there was nobody back there. So
He's very intuitive.
Geese are all alive. And then 2 deer flew out. I think before that gave him practice.
He was ready for this one.
Yeah. And so then we stopped. So all the animals lived. And it is sad. I mean, there's we saw so many dead deer.
Oh, every other mile.
Yeah, it's a sad thing. I mean, it just is to see these deer that kind of died needlessly. But I guess cars and trucks are the new predator.
They really are.
Right? We're the new predator. Or our trucks and cars are. Okay. So that was all happy ending. But we had a great time at the conference. Barnaby and his mom and the CAPS team put this on. It was extremely organized. I was extremely impressed. And I've been to a lot of conferences. This thing ran like clockwork. Great MC. I don't know. Just the speakers were great. I got to meet Chad Lewis finally. I've been wanting to meet Chad forever. And we just finally, there we are together in the same room.
That's beautiful.
That was cool. Yeah, we got to visit in private and talk quite a bit. Anyhow, what else we got here? Anyhow, so thanks to the CAPS team and all that. It was really a wonderful time and all the people that attended. And it was packed.
It was awesome. It was packed. It was full of great people.
Yeah.
This is obviously coming up, but I just want to let you know Sarah's in the back room. So when we have that update,
but you're not supposed to tell who's in the back room. So you just blew it. You proved you cannot keep a secret. Dork.
A mysterious guest
Third son.
is
Do you
behind
notice
this.
do you notice every week there's a new donut animation in the open? Have you noticed?
Yeah, I mean,
Now I saw an alien standing on the donut and a UFO over the donut.
oh, it's
The
making me put
crumbs
on weight.
off it. So yeah. Somebody's got it in for you, man. Somebody in
Yeah.
the animation department's got it in.
Yeah, they're all for me. I'll tell you, I ate a lot of junk food on that road trip.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we did. And we bought it at a liquor store, which made most of the junk food we bought quite old. It's expired.
Yeah. Well, I guess in Wisconsin, every gas station is also a liquor
This was
store.
like almost 99% liquor. We got our wax donuts. You guys ever had wax? Eric in the audience, please tell me, have
The
you ever had
waxies.
these waxy chocolate donuts? We call them waxies.
They don't have an expiration date
Yeah,
because
they
they don't
don't
need
ever
one.
expire. They're good forever. So anyhow, so we have a lot of great people. We got Kevin, we got Jeff Harding, Loretta Collins, John Ayers. We got Germack, Eric Sorensen, Kim Kincaid, Sharon, Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot, Ghost Riders, and did I say Kevin? Hi, Kevin, and also Jay is here.
Hey guys.
Yeah, and more. Those are some of the people I know. Okay, what else? Mapping Bigfoot, a new show starting on the Untold Radio Network, starts on Saturday, 7 p.m. Central.
Yes,
So you won't want
that's
to
going
miss
to be a great show.
the premiere episode of that.
Do not miss it, guys.
And then what's in the Untold news today is they launched the Boeing Starliner spacecraft today. Anybody all see that? I watched the launch live out of the corner of my eye. I mean, I was kind of looking for explosions and crap, but everything sounded good.
That's good.
But I look at this rocket and it looks like a flying dill. I'm not going to say it. A flying dill.
A symbol of manhood.
Symbol. Throw a photo on. You'll see what I mean. Looks like it belongs in a love store, if you know what I mean.
Wow. Is that on the cover of a romance novel?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's something like that. I guess a man's junk, I'm trying to work around, is really a good spacecraft design.
Yeah. It's aerodynamic.
It's a man's spacecraft right there. Well, it's smooth, I guess. It's doing good. So a small group of space weather forecasters are monitoring the sun. Apparently they're expecting another big solar explosion.
Oh, no.
Did you know that? What do you mean, oh, no? What do you care?
Well, I mean, I don't want to lose the internet.
It didn't affect you. It didn't affect you in any way. You didn't even go out and look at the northern lights.
I saw them on the internet.
Yeah, well, sure, on the internet. Anyhow, they were all seen as far south as Florida, but they're saying that maybe there'll be another thrilling display soon. Stand by, and hopefully it doesn't knock out all our radio communications.
Yeah.
That's
you guys are going to be able to watch the show.
And then on the other spectrum, the internet has apparently fallen in love with a goldfish named Alice, not Alex. Alice. A goldfish named Alex was apparently found flopping around in a guy's backyard. Just no ponds nearby. Just flopping around. So the internet kind of went crazy because he rescued it, put it in water, and it's doing good. And he's filming it and updating and blah, blah, blah.
That's
so that, and by the way, that's a stunt double. That is not Alice.
Oh, it's not.
That is a stunt double. What do you care?
I want to see the real deal.
You want to see the real goldfish? Oh my God, go online. They all kind of look similar.
Yeah, they all look alike.
They're all cute, right?
To you.
So apparently just a man, he walked outside and there was a thrashing goldfish on the lawn. He rescued it, and now the rest is kind of a viral story. It's amazing what will go viral, isn't it?
It is.
He thinks it's a true mystery, and I'm thinking bird dropped it. Bird scooped it out of a pond, could have been miles away, or out of a lake or river, and just dropped it. It slipped. Goldfish are slippery. How do I know? I do know they're slippery little dudes. So, what?
They're slippery.
Okay. Next, cougars are in the news. And there's a little clip that John Ayers sent me. There's no sound. Well, no, the sound is just fine. Hold on here. Let me make sure this is not. Yeah, this is it. Sound is good. Go ahead and play it. This woman, bless her soul.
What you're seeing is actually a dog coming into our live shot. I think it's a dog. I'm not sure. But anyway, there's some sort of creature below me. And really all that's been affected is
my soul
supposed to be a road right below my feet. And it's just basically covered in.
Okay.
Oh, man. She could have been eaten.
I would have completely, literally lost my soul.
Oh, yeah. I would have panicked.
It's just some things that scare me. Grizzlies and cougars. Something about being clawed to ribbons.
Yes.
Doesn't sound fun.
No, not at all.
And then speaking of wild animals that aren't so friendly, a bison gores an 83-year-old woman in Yellowstone. And I'm thinking, if you're 83, you need to stay in your car, not walking up the bison, right? So apparently she was seriously injured, airlifted. I believe she's from South Carolina. I hope she's recovering, but apparently the bison came within a few feet of her, lifted her about a foot off the ground with its horns. So emergency staff took her to a nearby Lake Medical Clinic for treatment. So when you're in your 20s, do not mess with buffalo. When you're in your 80s, absolutely just keep a mile distance, right?
Right.
You don't heal so quick when you're in your 80s.
No, you don't.
Have you ever heard of a super cow? Speaking of buffalo-like things, have you ever heard of a super cow?
I have not. What's a super cow?
All right, put up photo 3. If you can find it.
Yeah, I got it.
So apparently this cow, and this is not a stunt double. This is the real cow. Apparently this is the most expensive cow right now that exists in the entire world. It was recently sold for $4 million. Why? Look at it. If you had a neck like that, it'd be sold for $4 million too.
Does the meat taste that good?
No, I think it's just the size. It's massive. But could you imagine making a burger out of this poor creature? That'd be like a $40,000 burger. So apparently this cow sold for 3 times the last record holder.
So who's eating these burgers? Bill Gates?
Who's eating them? I don't know. I think they're just going to breed it. I think for one of her eggs, it's $250,000. They're going to sell her eggs, harvest her eggs, and sell them.
So they lay eggs?
No.
Just kidding.
No, that isn't how. Someone needs to educate Alex. That's not how this works. And no, John, that's not a bull. It's a cow. You see the udders underneath? I see the teats. John, look closer. Put your glasses on, John. It's not a bull. I know a bull. Bulls have horns, first off. But anyhow, this thing weighs 2,400 pounds. She's twice as heavy as an average adult of her breed. Twice as heavy.
Jeez.
And this was sold in Brazil. So if you'd like to raise your own super cows, go buy one of those little microscopic eggs for only a mere $250,000. That's all it will cost. It's nothing.
Yeah, can you imagine if you bought one of those eggs and it cracked open?
No, it doesn't work that way. Oh my God. Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
I should have said the cow's name. The cow's name, I don't know how to pronounce it, is Vatina 19.
Oh, nice name.
Yeah, these are egg cells, Alex. They don't have shells.
Yeah, yeah. I know.
Okay, I'm just making sure. All right. Speaking of other, we were talking about the cougar, nice kitty, right?
Yeah.
Another kitties in the stories, and that's jaguars. They're returning to America. People always think of jaguars as in the jungles and the Tarzan movies and blah, 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 blah. But they are coming up more and more up into Arizona. Apparently, I think they're breeding. I think they've been here a lot longer. But they said they don't need protection. They just voted, apparently, the Fish and Wildlife Service, that they do not need protection. And apparently they are also took away a bunch of the jaguars' land that was set aside. They had set aside 640,000 acres for the jaguars that crossed the Cochise and the Pima and Santa Cruz counties. So, is that how you say Pima, or is the P silent? Is it just Emma?
I think the P is silent.
Emma? Well, I just made a fool out of myself then. Just like you made a fool out of yourself on the eggs.
I mean, I thought it was kind of a mutant cow. I thought he was literally laying eggs.
No, yeah, right. I was going to talk about a new spacecraft, Star Wars style spacecraft, but I don't really give a dang. Apparently, humans are able to grow new teeth within just 6 years from today. Photo 6. And why you need to see this photo, I have no idea.
They
So
can
you don't need to
regrow
see
them.
that. Looks like that guy regrew too many. Anyhow, but apparently this new tooth regrowth system has been tested for quite a while. Let's see, 6 years away. So you apparently go get an IV. You sit there and get an IV like chemo, and then your teeth start growing. That's all I know. I just would not trust that at all. Personally,
Next thing you know, you have 500 teeth growing.
well,
out
yeah,
of your
that's
head.
what I would worry about. And then we have 206 bones. Maybe you wake up and you get 211 bones, right, in your body.
It's scary.
Yeah. Well, you know, teeth don't regrow because they're coated in calcium.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't. Anyhow, nobody cares. It's too easy, I guess, to go get an implant made out of plastic. 6 planets will align in the night sky. I should say did align. What am I saying? Will. On June 3rd, they all lined up. So they are lined up right now. There you go. Nobody cares. Didn't affect anything, did it? I did a speech during the planet alignment. What does that mean?
It means something special.
Okay, there we go. Enough of that. Fish on board a Chinese space station are doing, I love this title, swimmingly confused. And confused as hell. Apparently they brought fish in a fish tank up in the spacecraft. So it doesn't, there's no gravity. Doesn't know where to swim, up, down, right, left. It doesn't matter. That would be confusing.
It would be.
Maybe they're the ones that toss that goldfish out the window. Is that possible?
It's possible, yeah.
I suppose. All right, that's all I got. I ain't got nothing else. Let's get into this special report, since Alex already let the secret out. People were probably already guessing. Well, no, I suppose they don't know what it's about. But I'd like to bring on some breaking news. We have Sarah Brown backstage, and she has some news to report that I believe may be a dot connection. And already guys like Scott are trying to connect some dots to see if there may be a deeper connection. So I'll go ahead and bring Sarah on. Sarah.
Hi.
Hello.
How's
Well,
it going?
Now, let me just say, so you and your husband have been doing Bigfoot research on your property and beyond, right? And you guys captured like the best thermal footage probably ever, It was extremely highly vetted, correct?
Thank you. Yeah, I would say so far, but those cameras have come a long ways. So
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for the next one to come out with more detail.
It'll happen. Well, you guys might be the one. Anyhow, go ahead and I'm just going to let you talk and tell us
Okay.
about what you discovered on near your property.
And by the way, sir, I do have your the media you sent over, and David Ellis sent over an audio recording. So just let us know whenever you want me to put that in the stream.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. So there's an area that's a ways from our property. It's probably about a half mile as the crow flies. There's no houses or anything in between. And for years, we've been aware of the Sasquatch activity on our property since 2012. So it's been quite a while. And this area we've known since pretty close to the beginning that it was a very significant spot for the Sasquatch. And we just never quite knew why. You know, you've got your typical salmon runs at the river, and those correlate with our active times of year, spring and fall. You know, you've got spring-fed creeks and things like that, which also correlate. But we felt like there was something more that was there, something that was being heavily guarded because of all the activity that was happening in this particular area. David Ellis experienced some activity down by this area when he had visited. Shane Corson also had some activity happen in this area. There were multiple people that had different things happen. A group of us were camping Memorial Day weekend in this particular area. And our friend Nathaniel Bronish shows up, and he says, I am so blown away right now because these black walnut trees that you have growing here this is clicking with me now, because this is what we have at the area that he's studying. There's black walnut trees. So kind of hits us, okay, that's it then. That's what they're guarding. It's about 60 acres of massive black walnut trees.
Wow.
And this could have started, I suspect that this is an ancient homestead site. And just planting a couple of those hundreds of years ago, they spread like wildfire in this area.
Oh yeah, that's what they do. That's why they obviously, produce all this fruit and seeds, which are walnuts.
Yeah.
So
then we started looking into the benefits of black walnut, and it's actually a superfood.
Yeah.
It's got its omegas. It's an amazing food.
Isn't it
you can get so many calories from it. You can get protein from it without using too much energy. Just crack them open. And
isn't it anti-parasitic also?
Yes.
That's interesting, because Briggs Hall had gathered a huge stool it was massive. It was like 4 foot long and the size of a coffee can. He had some of it tested, had no parasites in it, none.
Wow.
Which is impossible for an animal living in the wild. So go ahead.
Wow. I think that's a big reason, is that can cleanse your body every single year of all that stuff that they're eating in the wild. So we believe that's the big thing. I took a couple videos down there today in the area that I sent you, a couple snapshots, and what you'll see are I forgot what the chemical is in the black walnut, but there's something in the black walnuts that, what was that?
Tannin.
That's it. And it will kill most other species of trees except oaks. So you're going to see a mix of oaks, white oaks, and those are the black walnut trees.
Yeah, and they just look like, to the average person, they look like regular trees.
They kind of look like alder trees, the leaf patterns on them. And the bark even reminded me of that. So there, I also sent you a audio clip. This is probably our most well-known audio clip. This was over a decade ago that audio clip was taken. I think David Ellis sent it to you. There it is.
I got it.
So
you want to cue up
my brother-in-law and I were all outside, and we could hear from this walnut grove, from that area, we could hear the Sasquatch yelling, roaring at something, yelling. And this is daylight still. And I grabbed my cell phone, got to the recording app, started recording, and you're gonna hear that clip.
I'm gonna get down there in the open.
So you hear the two roars, and then my brother-in-law says we should get down and go in the field. We pass through a field, and there's the grove. And then we actually could feel that roaring. It was so loud that
recorders don't capture the bass.
It doesn't capture it. So John got a little freaked out. So he's like, let's go. Let's turn back around. But common sense can share a lot with us about this clip, because after you hear those two roars, my brother-in-law says something about going down the field, and then you hear what sounds like the Sasquatch is yelling at something. And if the Sasquatch came across a person in its territory, there's really no need to yell. You've already scared them to death. And also a bear or anything, we just don't think that there would be a reason for the Sasquatch to yell. I think that it's another Sasquatch that has possibly come onto its territory, and it is protecting this grove. Because again, if you want to play that again, it sounds like there's words, and if anybody out there's hearing or has headphones on, you'll hear it a lot better.
Okay, before you played, Alex, can you put up some of the comments? Snow White Bigfoot says that she's been gifted black walnuts. This is the reason we want to get this info out, because if you have a homestead where you're being bothered, or you think there's Bigfoot, search your property for black walnuts trees. Get back to us. Let Sarah know. Let me know. Let David know. Let somebody know about it. Because once we start piecing together their favorite foods, I guess it's going to help us do better research.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, go ahead and play it again.
That.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna get down there in the open.
And do you want to give a rough location where this is? This is obviously Washington.
Yeah, we live on the Chehalis Indian Reservation in Washington State.
Yeah. So there you go. People were asking where is it? Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing. Have you ever eaten these walnuts or harvested them?
I haven't harvested them from this area. I probably will this year, because I don't believe anybody harvests these.
Yeah.
I think that they're pretty much left alone. So I will this year, but I do consume walnuts almost regularly just to get the omegas from them.
Yeah, they're I was actually eating walnuts today, right? I don't know if they were black walnuts. I personally don't know the difference of what the nut looks like. But I started choking on one. What does that mean? I inhaled one in my windpipe. Just a little one, but man, it made me choke and choke and choke. And I was on the phone eating walnuts. So it was walnut day today. It's a great food. So what else? Any other dot connections that have happened over there, Sarah, before we let you go?
Not like that. Nothing like that. I mean, there's berries down there. There's salmon berries, huckleberries, black cat berries, raspberries, which are also important. But I think that this is bigger. I think that it's a bigger deal. I'm anxious to see what your friend is able to find with the maps.
Yeah. So he's going to check GIS. Looking for all the walnut trees and the walnut surveys and, orchards. And because I've taken reports where Bigfoots have been in walnut orchards or they've had to chase them out off their farm because they were, destroying some of the trees. So it's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like if you look at eastern Texas, and there's good habitat, but it's full of black walnut trees. It's really interesting, but real hot spot, for Bigfoot. So anyhow, well, thank you so much, Sarah.
Yes, we're going to, for letting me share.
We'll get you back on, and we'll get you back on with David and Jonathan and maybe Scott when Scott does some research. All right.
Wonderful. All right. Have a good night.
Thanks so much. All right.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye. Well, that was interesting for sure.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, the whole idea is if we don't communicate these, things, the fact it's the biggest orchard probably in Washington State that was abandoned and hidden in the forest and pretty adjacent to their property, and they're having all this activity, it speaks volumes.
It does.
Yeah. So let's go to some WTF clips, some untold WTF. I got a few of them that are kind of interesting.
Dad, can I play the bumper?
Sure, play the bumper. All right, clip one, WTF clip one. Sound is fine, right?
Right.
But this dude, I don't, at first I'm looking at this thing going, what in the world am I even looking at? I mean, this is a face only a mother could love. Go ahead and play it. Sounds good.
Oh my gosh.
So you look at this thing and go, what in the world am I looking at? How could anything be that homely? That is a eastern redbat. Must have probably ran into something, landed upside down in their yard, couldn't get up out of the grass, so they rescued it.
That's a scary looking bat.
It is, isn't it? Could you go and play it one more time? That's really something. But anyhow, this creature was rescued. They are rare, I guess. Eastern redbat. I've never seen one. I don't know if I ever want to.
No, not in person.
Pretty homely, man. I got those teeth. Okay. Clip 2. WTF clip 2. Alex is just going right into it. That's fine. Wind can be a weird thing. Go ahead and play it. Sounds good. Weird wind. That is no kidding.
Oh my god.
Oh,
no. Oh no. He's surfing on that thing.
Oh my god. That fits the definition of WTF. Okay. So we had wind almost that bad today here. I mean, it was bad. And last night we had a weird downdraft that knocked tons of trees down. And I looked out to my lake, and there was actually like a hole. The downdraft was so strong it pushed like a big hole in the lake. It was weird. Never seen that before either. So wind was on my mind. All right, clip 3, WTF clip 3. Sound is fine. This needs no explanation, and please, no jokes. WTF, right? Right?
Wow.
Just wow. Just go ahead, everybody in the comments. Put wow. Let's see how many wows we can get in the comments. Please.
Just be great at a water park.
Guys, I give him credit. He's wearing it proud too.
Yeah, he is.
Who said they don't exist, right? Proof.
There's proof, right?
What's my joke? Okay, that's bad too. And I said no jokes. See, come on, more wows. Let's get some more wows. Come on. All right, clip WTF clip 4. See how Alex just goes right into it. I don't even get to introduce it. No sound. What is this a thing? It's what I want to know. Is this a thing? Go ahead and play it. Is this a thing, Alex? You have a cat. Is this a thing?
Yes.
It is a thing.
Yes.
They do this.
Yeah, she does it
They
on her
like
bed.
people in bleachers watching a baseball game. Really? Okay.
She sits like this.
Leave a comment if your cat does this in the actual comments too. If you see this video, tomorrow or next week, whatever. I just want to know. I'm really curious. And I will get those comments. And I do respond to comments.
He does.
As long as they're not troll comments.
Yeah, no trolls.
Okay, and let's get into our regular clips quickly. And let me know when Jimmy's in the background. Mr. Atkins.
Yeah, will do.
All right. Clip 1. Sound is fine. Nobody saw this coming. Thousands of acres of solar panels. Go ahead and play it. Sounds fine. Okay. I mean thousands of acres. Damaged by hail. Who would have thought? Destroyed by hail.
Brutal.
Think of the cost here. One hailstorm, gone. Apparently they might still work, but how long they won't.
Yeah.
How long they'll get corroded.
Yeah. Duh.
Fill up with dirt and debris. And so anyhow, enough of that crap.
And just a heads up. We're obviously wrapping up here, but Jimmy just got in the background.
We'll be with Jimmy really quick here. Let's do a few more clips and we'll bring Jimmy on. Clip 2 sounds fine. This struck me as
creature.
Geez, Alex, you're just all over. You're just like ready, shoot, aim. Okay.
I'm like Wild Bill Hickok.
Yeah, the sound is fine. Struck me as odd. Oh no, that's the last one. This show shows the extreme vacuum. No, you've got something different. Okay, just go ahead and play this.
Just play it.
So I don't know what the hell you're putting up, but I do remember it. And I put this up because doesn't this remind you of that cat? But what the hell is this thing?
A small creature with a dog-like face appears to be sitting on a ledge, its legs crossed as if intently watching the action below.
It's just sitting there so human-like. I think it's like a possum.
Yeah.
But maybe not. I really can't tell.
I think it's a little demon. We'll have to ask Jimmy.
Yeah, it might be. Okay. Jesus. Apparently, was that clip 3? Something's wrong.
That was 2. We're on to 3 now.
Oh, I skipped one. Okay. So clip 3, sound is totally fine. Go ahead. This shows what the vacuum of wind in a tornado can do. Go ahead and play it. I'll tell you, storms are scary. Look at this. Look, a boat flew right into it. Okay. Starting to look like Wizard of Oz.
I'm sorry, you said something?
I said it's starting to look like Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, clip 4. I think this will probably be our last clip. This is really interesting, and it explains a side effect of birds chirping. Okay, scientifically, a side effect of birds chirping. Clip 4. That's not clip 4. There we go. Sound up.
Use their songs to send a powerful frequency that kickstarts the day for the entire world. In the next 60 seconds, I'm going to tell you the actual reason why birds chirp before sunrise.
It's up all the way,
Grab
Dad.
your popcorn because this story will blow your mind away. So, there's this guy in Iowa, right? He got super curious about why birds get all musical when it's still dark out. What he discovered is something unbelievable, but it's all science, I promise. It turns out the chirping isn't just a wake-up call for us or a way to chat with other birds. It's actually a wake-up call for plants. The frequency of bird chirps helps open up tiny little things called stomata, which are like little mouths on the underside of leaves. This gets the plants ready to breathe in the morning air and soak up that early sunshine. It's like the birds are setting an alarm clock for the whole plant world. And guess what? This guy found out that this magical chirpy frequency is also in classical music. Yeah, you heard that right. Beethoven, Mozart, all those guys were onto something. So what does our curious friend in Iowa do? He starts blasting classical music to his cornfield. I know it sounds like he's just a couple fries short of a happy meal, right?
We get the idea.
And hold on.
Yeah.
His corn starts growing like...
Enough of that.
So birds singing open up the little plant mouse. Who would have thought, right? We live in an amazing world. We really do. Not only is it an amazing world, we don't know anything about it. But go ahead and just play clip 6 because this is how thirsty I am right now. No. Clip 6. That's clip 5. Clip 6. This is how thirsty I am. It's right after 5, Alex. That's how thirsty I am. All right, let me introduce our guest. And I do want to do tech breakdown, but we're going to do it probably at the very, very end of the show. Okay. So perfect. Stick around for that. It's going to be about e-bikes and kind of a primer on it, but we're gonna skip that and do that at the end. So anyhow, okay. So Jimmy Atkins, Mysterious World, podcast channel, YouTube channel. But he is an American Catholic. He calls it, I don't even know what this means, a Catholic apologist. I don't know what that means. He's an author, speaker, researcher, and obviously a popular podcast host of Mysterious World. He apparently is also working for a group called Catholic.
Very cool.
And the reason he's going to be so interesting to talk to, he's also academically trained in philosophy. So
awesome.
And let's discuss one of the greatest mysteries of our time with the great Jimmy Atkins. Jimmy, hey, let me get my camera on here. I didn't even know it was off. How are you? Whoop, got your mic muted. There we go. Still muted. Might be on the mic, might be on the StreamYard as a mute too.
Yeah, otherwise, if you click the settings button at the bottom of StreamYard, you could click the audio tab. You should see your mic from the drop down, and you might have to switch it to a different mic.
To the mic you're using, yeah.
Should see your levels go up and down when you talk in StreamYard. He's gonna probably jump back in.
Okay, sounds good. I hate that when that happens.
Yeah, he sounded perfect yesterday.
Well, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
What changes? There he is.
Hello.
He's working on it.
Oh, okay. He's gonna reboot.
Yeah, I've had that happen too. You just reboot and everything works again.
Yeah.
So he's written a lot of books.
Yeah, he's got a very popular.
It includes like the Fathers Know Best, right? I think it's a play on the TV show title. A show way before your time called Father Knows Best. Mass Revision and the Salvation Controversy. So people, I hope you check out his books. Super interesting, guys. Should be a fascinating conversation.
Yeah. Well, he might be gone a minute or two. We could
should we do some more clips?
Yeah, we could do that if you want.
Clip 5. Sound is fine. I think gorillas apparently invented the umbrella. They don't like the rain. As I've noticed, Bigfoots don't like the rain because we've done research in certain areas and they don't come around until it quits raining. Go ahead, play clip 5. He's broken, man. This guy found something to cover his head. I think a burlap.
Just like a human.
Didn't even want to get wet. That's crazy.
That's cute. Ah. So we could do some tech breakdown while we're waiting.
You want me to do that? Oh gosh, I hate to get started and then I'll be able to finish.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so tech breakdown is going to basically what I'm going to do first is people are confused. I know a lot of people that want to buy e-bikes for doing research, but they don't know which one.
Right.
So I thought I would educate people on which one to get depending on where you live, describe the differences. You know, there's hub motors, which are the most commercially available and the cheapest e-bikes. But if you live in a hilly or mountainous area, you're going to burn them up. You're going to burn up the motor because the motor gets too warm. All the gears are all nylon, plastic, and they melt. And you don't want that. So you need, if you live in a mountainous area, you need to get a mid-drive.
A mid-drive.
Yeah. Throw up photo 10, and that'll show the differences between a hub motor and a mid-drive. Photo 10. The one on the left is a mid-drive, actually connects to the chain, and the one on the right is a hub motor, so it just drives the wheel. Hey, we got Jimmy back.
Hey, Jimmy.
Hey there, how's it going?
Perfect audio. Don't you hate that when that happens?
I know. I'm sorry. You sounded perfect yesterday. You sound great now, so I'm excited.
Thank you. I'm excited too. Very glad to be here and nice to meet both of y'all, Doug and Alex.
So, you are, I have to tell you, you are just a brilliant person. You just are. You're just brilliant and also reasonable. I watched a thing you did a long time ago on Bigfoot, right? Years ago. On probably when you first started podcasting, I would imagine.
Yep.
But you were so reasonable as a skeptic. You were so, you really open. You listened and listed both sides of the argument, and I went, "Wow, this guy's got it together, man." I just wish every skeptic and scientist had your attitude. So, where do you stand today? Let's just jump in right there.
Yeah, well, so on my podcast, Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, we started it 5 years ago. We're a top 20 documentary podcast in the U.S. on Apple Podcasts.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We got more than 100,000 listeners, and it all started, very simple. And we've progressed a lot since then. The Bigfoot episode that we've done thus far was episode 3. And we're now over episode 300. So we've done a lot of work. I've done a lot more research. And I have to tell you, my position on Bigfoot has shifted some. Back then, I was skeptical of Bigfoot, because I try to look at everything from both sides. But I try to be fair. But I had some bad data at the time. And so since then, I've read Jeff Meldrum's book, Sasquatch, which is an outstanding resource for anyone who hadn't read it. And I became aware that there's more evidence for Bigfoot than what I had initially suspected. And so although I'm not yet convinced of Bigfoot's existence, I'm less skeptical than I was. I think there's one major objection to Bigfoot that needs to be addressed. But in terms of, is there actual evidence for Bigfoot? I think there is evidence that points in the direction of Bigfoot existing. I'm just not fully convinced yet.
So what do you think is the most compelling evidence? And what do you think is the biggest objection to it existing?
So the biggest objection is easy. That's the fact that you need a breeding population. a Bigfoot here in order to have them continue to exist. I mean, we know that there were giant apes like Gigantopithecus and so forth in Southeast Asia in the past, but you need a breeding population in order to have a species continue. Now, I should mention, I'm just talking about the naturalistic understanding of Bigfoot. I'm not talking about the supernaturalistic understanding.
Yeah.
That's a separate issue. I haven't looked into that yet. But assuming that Bigfoot is just an ordinary primate, you would need a breeding population for them to continue to exist. And it's a little hard to see how a breeding population could exist here in North America, given that we have loads of biologists in this country who are looking for all kinds of different species. In fact, my sister used to work for the forestry department, and they would go out into the forest and conduct surveys of patches of ground. She was looking at snails and what kind of snails are in this patch of ground, and they'd cordon off the ground into grids, and then they'd collect the snails so you don't count them twice. They'd put them on like a snail board, and you had to be careful because some of the snails are predators that will eat the other snails, and you got to look at your snail board periodically to make sure you're not seeing a slow motion attack with one homicidal snail going after another. But that just illustrates, how detailed the work being done by biologists is. And in addition to the biologists, we have lots of Bigfoot hunters, and they have camera traps, and they've got all kinds of things. And so it's hard to see how a larger than human primate could continue to be in North America and remain undiscovered by science. There are loads of cryptids out there. There are loads of undiscovered species, but they tend to be very, very small, like microscopic or small insects or things like that, small slugs. But if you're talking something bigger than a human being, it's a little hard to see how that could remain undiscovered in a place like North America. It's not impossible. We do have lots of open space. People think we're overpopulated, and as someone who travels the country, we are not overpopulated. There's lots of open space out there.
Yep.
But this is the big objection to me. On the other hand, there is evidence. I think the Patterson-Gimlin film looks better than I initially regarded it. We have a lot of the stuff that Jeff Meldrum covers in his book, I think is quite compelling. Like we have footprints that clearly are not just wooden boards. They're reactive. Jimmy, they even have dermal ridges that sometimes get preserved in the medium that was stepped in.
Jimmy, with the Patterson footage, I'm just curious. Was it you hadn't seen an enhanced version when you initially watched it?
Well, no, frankly, that was some of the bad data I had encountered. I was aware of claims that this guy in the 1960s said, "Oh yeah, I made a suit for Patterson," and another guy said, "And I was the guy in the suit." But there are problems with those claims, and when you look at the film carefully, it looks a lot better than you'd think, especially for the 1960s. I mean, the film was basically taken contemporaneously with Planet of the Apes. And if you look at Planet of the Apes, which was cutting-edge Hollywood costumes, they don't look like real apes when you study them carefully. Yeah. And this Bigfoot creature, you can see the muscles rippling under the skin, and they just didn't have the costuming technology for that.
I love the fact that you're acknowledging that. And that's got to be, I think about how strange it is, on one hand, to be, have not seen one, right? Because that's really the only way any of us get out of the skepticism is to actually have a real experience with these things, right? Or see one face to face. But until then, we're so reliant on, footprint casts, the Patterson footage. And then when you look at it, it's just I'm old enough to remember all the cheesy costumes in Lost in Space. I don't know how old you are. Well, I'm not going to ask you. But did you ever watch Lost in Space when you were younger? Okay.
I'm 58 years old, so I saw Lost in Space.
You saw reruns. I had to wait for Friday night to see them, but they were so bad, the costumes. So when I first saw the Patterson footage, it was like that 3-second, like, oh my God, and I did notice the muscles even as a young boy. And it really struck me even then as being that, that this is real. Like I was looking at a bear, bear footage or some real animal footage. Do you feel that in the Patterson footage, the muscles are the biggest thing that point to its realism?
Well, I'm planning on doing a future episode of Mysterious World on just the Patterson-Gimlin film, and for that, I'm gonna do a deep dive into the research. Thus far, I've exposed myself to material, talking about it, but I haven't done a lot of the primary research for myself yet.
Yeah,
that's part of my process. So I haven't yet prioritized, what I consider the strongest pieces of evidence versus weaker pieces of evidence for it. But the muscles are notable. So is the sagittal crest on its head, and its gait.
The gait is complex.
Yeah.
Actually.
The gait is partially dependent on the speed at which the film was taken. My understanding is that if the film was taken at a certain frame rate per second, then a human could potentially imitate that gait, but there's evidence that it was not filmed at that frame rate, and a human could not do it.
Any difference? That's complete BS, Jimmy. Here's why.
Tell me about it.
Here's why. The legs are the knees are compliant. They never lock, right? That's pretty obvious. But the knees are going in and out like this. The legs are splaying and knock-kneeing. It's basically a swimming motion. Study, the only animal that comes close to the gait is a Peruvian horse, a naturally gaited horse that can climb mountains. It's revered for its smoothness, which the reports of Bigfoot, which are also, it seemed like it was floating over the road. And this Peruvian horse, it's a naturally gaited horse. It just does a swimming motion. And I was in South Dakota on a huge ranch, and I was doing a story on Peruvian horses. This guy had this massive amount of these amazing horses, and I was filming them with all sorts of high-speed shutters and different high-speed cameras to try to. This is before I was even into Bigfoot. Just trying to understand this complex gait. Well, then when it hit me what they were doing, I went, wow, even way back then, right? So then eventually I started doing forward reversed enhanced loops. So you just take a clip and then you edit it to a clip going backwards so they're seamless. So you can just kind of watch it go back and forth, real seamless. And that's how I started noticing this weird angle. Like literally the thighs end up at that angle. I couldn't even, I ended up getting a huge bodybuilder, and we tried to get him to even get in these positions on a still basis, where we had the white balls glued all over him to match the Patterson angle, and we actually could overlay the footage and wipe it back and forth so we could get this guy in at just perfect angle. He couldn't even stand, let alone walk in these different angles. So to me, frame rate is complete and utter the misdirection to even think about frame rate. Because all it does is gets more complicated the faster it goes. Obviously, if something's slower, it'd be easier to fake it, if you were going, but I guarantee you couldn't even stand. And I could send you animation and tapes that we did.
Oh, I'd love to see him.
Yeah. I got to get you up to speed. It'd be really cool to see what, basically, I mean, an academic with a brilliant mind thinks about some of this evidence, because, I may be missing something. I don't feel like I have any skin in the game. I tried to debunk the Patterson footage too for many years. I tried. That was my goal. couldn't do it. The more I did, I kept unlocking more, like, what in the hell is that? And then there's a scene where the creature walks away, right? It completely walks away from you, and you can really study the leg movement. But it's short. You don't have a lot of seconds there to do it. But that goes ignored too by almost every researcher. Well, here's what happened one time. I was near the Mississippi River, near a state park, near Lake Pepin, I guess, kind of on my way to Lake Pepin. But there's a man I saw walking in a field. And I thought, boy, that guy's clothes matched the field color because they weren't planted yet. It matches exact. I went, what? What am I looking at? And all of a sudden we get closer and I'm like, oh my God, it's a Bigfoot. And it was just cutting between two tree lines. It was walking between one tree line to get into the next tree line. But it was taking a shortcut right through this farmer's field. And it was the exact color, but here's the beauty. I got to watch it in real time, walk from the side across the entire field and from the back. And oh my God, it was exactly the walk, this swimming walk that I saw the knees knock in and then walleye out, knock in and walleye out that I saw in the Patterson film.
Well, what a cool experience. I would love to see a Bigfoot myself. And I moved back recently to my home state of Arkansas. So here we got the folk monster. So I may get my wish.
You almost have to you really got to put yourself out there. And this was just, if they're paranormal, I guess maybe it was shown to me. If it was a living creature I saw, then I was just lucky. Or because when I'm driving, God forbid, or if I'm a passenger in a car, which is one of the rare chances I was a passenger, and I got to really stare, look into the forest, look at this. And I swear to God, I just thought it was a farmer dressed in these dark brown, head to toe. I figured he had a hat, he had the overalls, he had the shoes, everything matched the field. And when I got closer, I realized, oh my God, this thing was, the whole thing was dirt covered because I was looking at her hair. That was really interesting.
Cool.
But could I be mistaken? I guess, I was still probably 75 yards from it. It's still quite a distance.
And that'd be a question that I'd have too. If I saw something that looked kind of like a Bigfoot, I would wonder, could it be a bear? Could it be a bear with mange so it doesn't look normal?
Yeah.
But bears have a unique gait that's all their own, and so that would be a telling piece of evidence.
Plus, bears have no collarbones. First thing people noticed, and I noticed on this creature, was these massive shoulders. And so bears' angled shoulder blades are weird. And often, Jimmy, I meet people. And I don't have much time to tell them why I think Bigfoot's real. But I always like to go, well, it's a geographic problem. They are seen near woods, water, and hills. And never seen more than a few yards from water, generally. There's water always right near there. Within 500 yards, you're going to find water. A stream,
they must be thirsty.
A river. Yeah. I mean, then some of the native tribes called them the water apes, translated. So they obviously need water for something, cover, food, drinking, who knows, but it's not spurious. If it was spurious, you would think that you would find them, guys seen them in the desert or in areas that are more arid, but they're always seen where there's 60 inches of rain or more. They're not seen, or if they are seen in a more arid area, only along a river. And obviously they're probably getting from point A to point B, if they're real, because I don't have a body. I can't prove they're real. So I'm kind of with you. I talk myself out of their existence probably daily, every hour I talk myself in and out. Do you find that same kind of battle in your brain?
Well, with Bigfoot, yeah, I kind of do because, I look at the evidence, that's been presented and some of it is very convincing.
Yeah.
But then I come back to the breeding population question, and you just need a certain number of organisms in order to maintain a species. And it's hard to see how that could exist in North America. If this was somewhere like Thailand, where they have lots of jungles and stuff, it would be easier. But North America, even though it's possible to have a larger than human cryptid that's undiscovered, it's harder.
Yeah.
And so I kind of go back and forth on that one.
What about like Canada, like super remote places?
Mm-hmm. Canada, I think it would be easier because Canada has much less population than the United States and is bigger in territory. And a lot of it is more remote. So I could see it existing in Canada more easily than in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, when you fly over the vast wilderness of the north, it's insane. It's just 6 hours of flying and you don't see one road. And it's like, whoa.
Another place it could exist in the United States would be Alaska, because Alaska has tons of woods. In fact, I was once visiting Alaska, and I forget the town I was in at the moment. It may have been Sitka, but they explained that here we have no statute for grand theft auto because there's no road that leads out of town. The most serious it gets here is joyriding. Because if you steal a car, you can go joyriding in it, but you can't commit grand theft auto because there's no way to get out of town.
There's no way to get out. That's funny. That's hilarious. Do you feel that this breeding, how many animals do you feel you would need to have a viable breeding? What would be your, I know we're all guessing, but what would be your guess?
Well, I've looked it up in the past, and you'll get different estimates. Some of the estimates are, I think, too high. Like, for example, it was once thought that humans couldn't exist with a breeding population, or couldn't survive with a breeding population of less than, 20,000. But we now have evidence that there was a population, at least one population bottleneck in our own history where we got down to a couple thousand or something like that.
Whoa.
And I think I've seen some estimates that, like, okay, maybe you could eke by with as few as 25 individuals in a population. I'm skeptical that would actually work, but it could be fairly small. But then how do we explain all the sightings if it is that small?
Right. Yeah, you realize, the sightings happen in almost every state where there's woods, water needles over so many inches of rain, kind of pretty much overlaps with bear population. And man, we have so many bears where people have not seen them. In Minnesota, we have about 40,000 black bears. I can talk to numerous people, at a party, and where I can ask how many people have seen a black bear. 3 people raise their hand. There'll be 100 people there. So there's not that many sightings, even of black bears in most cases, unless they've been, heavily habituated to humans and they're coming around to places
in the garbage cans
and that kind of stuff. So tell me about where you live. Do you live in Texas now?
No, I was born in Texas, but I grew up here in Arkansas.
In Arkansas.
And I live in the Ozark Mountains.
Okay, so you have a lot of wilderness around you.
Yep, I love it.
And you have a lot of Bigfoot reports around you, by the way, as you know, I'm sure.
We do. In fact, over just across the border in Stillwell, Oklahoma, they have the Bigfoot Symposium every year. And I wanted to go this year, but I wasn't able to. But next year, I'm planning on going.
Good. Yeah, I should probably introduce you to some biology Bigfoot researchers that have degrees in biology and so on, and hook you up with some people that, I wouldn't be afraid for you to meet and question, have intelligent conversations with, and maybe go out in the field.
I'd love that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we gotta introduce you to some people. So we haven't uncovered the Bigfoot species, meaning we don't have a body.
A type specimen, as
We
they
don't have
call
a
it in
type
biology.
specimen, yeah.
Mhm.
But people people go to me, well, why don't we see them ever? Why don't people see them? And I'm like, oh my God. I think that there's probably about 1,000 people a day that think they see them.
Mhm.
Think, keyword think. But out of those, I'll bet you there's a percentage that where they go, no, it was a road crossing. We saw it in our headlights across the road. Where people are pretty convinced they don't know what they saw, but they kind of know what they didn't see. So where do you put those? I mean, yeah, people have bad eyesight. You know, I know how that can go.
I think it's like reports of anything. I mean, so I study parapsychology and actually teach parapsychology. And one of the things they train you when you're doing field investigations is you look for the normal causes first. When you are learning about a phenomenon, let's say it's a ghost is haunting somebody's house, you talk to the witnesses, you investigate, you get their reports, and then you make a list of every possible thing that could explain what they experienced. And then you look at the normal phenomena first, because normal phenomena are more common than paranormal phenomena. And you go down the list. And if you can't find a good explanation within the normal phenomena, then that warrants you in proposing a paranormal explanation. I think the same thing is true with UFO sightings. Lots of UFO sightings, the majority of them, are really something natural. It's a star or an airplane or some kind of weird, government technology or something. But then there are the unexplainable ones. And I think it's likely going to be the same with Bigfoot. A lot of Bigfoot sightings could be, because people hoax in every area. Some of them could be hoaxes. In fact, I know of one case I think is a hoax. Some of them could be mistaken, misperception, where you maybe see a bear and you think it's a Bigfoot, or you see a human in the distance and you think it's a Bigfoot. But then if there are residual cases that cannot be explained normally, those are the ones we really want to look into.
Yeah, and I always wonder, and it puzzles me, why doesn't science throw some money at the problem? Only because it's not going to go away. Don't you agree? This isn't going away.
No, but that's
not a fad.
Yeah, but getting funding is in an area that is not de rigueur in science is the perennial problem. UFO people can't get money from mainstream science foundations.
Yeah.
Paranormal researchers can't get money from mainstream science foundations, and Bigfoot researchers can't get money from mainstream science foundations. Who gets the money is the climate change people and for a while, the string theory people and stuff like that were on the popular science ideas. If you got a popular science idea, you can get all the funding you want. But if you're looking into something that's not popular, well, you're not one of the cool kids. We're not giving you any money.
Yeah. It just seems, it seems like there's enough cool stuff or anecdotal evidence that there would be some interest by even one scientist that went, I'm really going to throw my life at this and get a few more scientists. We're going to raise a little bit of capital and we're going to go. I don't think there's any of those examples I can cite. Not one. Other than like Jeff Meldrum, Grover Krantz, but it would be. I don't think Jeff could, gather up a huge expedition with fellow academics and scientists, with let's say, 300,000 in the bank to be able to pay for travel and equipment, or to stay in one location and try to do some habituating to try to lure these things out. What do you think? Do you think even one body, Jimmy, would prove the existence? I don't think it would.
Really, I would be more optimistic. I would think if we got they're called either type specimens or voucher specimens. And if we actually got one that could be brought into the lab and you can x-ray it and see its skeleton is not the same as any known creature, and it's bigger than a human, and it's a primate, and you can test its DNA and see it's not some known species. I think that would cause skeptical scientists to say, yeah, okay, this is plausibly responsible for all the Bigfoot sightings that have been reported.
Yeah.
So I think if we actually got a voucher specimen, I think that would be a game changer for this.
I think it would be a bar raiser, but I don't think
Mhm.
I just don't think they would enter it. I don't think the taxonomy would get
Hmm.
completed and entered into the system. You have to say science. You have to repeat things, right? So we need a second body would be the excuse.
Well, you typically
This could be a deformed genetic
Mhm.
throwback, a human with some deformities.
Well, that's why I mentioned being able to type its DNA, because you can tell if this is a human with mutations or something else with mutations.
Yeah.
We're able to date now with genetics how long it's been since species diverged, since two populations split. Like us and chimpanzees, I think that's like 6 million years. And so if you could look and see how long has it been, assuming this is a primate, how long has it been since the Bigfoot population, or what became the Bigfoot population, split off from other primates? And if this was just a human with mutations or something like that, or a gorilla with mutations, you don't have that many mutations in an individual. And so if you looked at its genome and saw just a few changes compared to something that's known, then that would tell you this is not a Bigfoot. This is just a mutant. But if you see, oh, its genome is substantially different, and that's responsible for all the characteristics that Bigfoots are reported to have, I think that would be convincing for folks.
Do you think there would be still some controversy with the body?
Oh, well, you're going to always have naysayers, but I think that my suspicion is people are open on this. Even when you look at skeptics like, I'm blanking on his name now. He's one of the Skeptical Inquirer guys. I mean, he's made statements that it's not unreasonable to believe in Bigfoot, or at least it's not unreasonable to have proposed Bigfoot, say in the 1970s.
Are you thinking Ben Radford?
No, he wrote Why People Believe Weird Things.
Oh, okay.
Among other things. But he said that, this wasn't an impossible idea, and it was reasonable to look into it and, entertain it in the 70s. He just thinks and he hasn't really kept up on the Bigfoot research. But he thinks that given it's 50 years later and we haven't found anything, he thinks it's time to move on. But if we got a type specimen, I think he'd come right back.
Yeah, it's always interesting to just fantasize, which is all I can do.
Michael Shermer, that's his name.
Yeah, I've heard that name. I don't know him. I know Ben, but some of those guys are reasonable. They're not completely closed-minded, but like you, they have their things that just stick in their craw that they just can't get over. And I have a problem too with the fact we don't get better camera trap footage, by accident, even if they, can sense the cameras or see the cameras because it's kind of their living room. Still
Jimmy,
think one would screw up.
What's your view on the theory that Bigfoot may possess intelligence or, like a self-awareness beyond typical animals, making them more adept at evading detection?
Well, so if Bigfoot's a primate, then I would expect their intelligence to be high. In fact, Bigfoot, since it lacks a tail and is large, it would be a great ape, like humans. I don't think it's as smart as humans are because we have technology in Bigfoot. I mean, we run this rock and Bigfoot doesn't. But they could have quite high intelligence, and unlike other great apes like chimpanzees and bonobos and gorillas, they might be shy rather than aggressive natively. And so I could see the idea of them not having human level intelligence, but having enough intelligence with an inclination to stay out of our way that could make them harder to find. So I think that's possible. The question would be, well, like, why don't we get camera trap footage and stuff then that's really good?
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be the biggest argument, isn't it? Because I don't know how many camera traps are out there, but I'll bet you there's millions of them, in the millions. Deer hunters, use them all year. Yeah, it's just such a strange mystery. But don't you think it's worthy of study?
Oh, sure. I'm far from. I mean, it could even be that Bigfoot is a paranormal phenomenon, and in that case, it's also worthy of study.
Yeah.
So I'm not dissing anyone for wanting to look into this and trying to find evidence. Even if there's nothing there, it can be a fun hobby.
Yeah, so obviously it doesn't do any harm.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying there's a chance.
How would you be willing to put a percentage?
Oh boy. Well, this is where, like I mentioned earlier, like you, I kind of go back and forth on this. Yeah. I suspect I'm a little more skeptical than you are, but not hugely so, maybe. On a bad day, I would put it as less than 5%.
Okay.
Not a good day.
On a good day, it would be considerably higher than that. I don't know that I'd get up to 50%, but it would, maybe, depending on where my future research goes.
And is this, we're talking about a physical flesh and blood animal?
Yes.
What about a paranormal something?
Well, the question then would be, what is it? Because there are certain categories of paranormal phenomena that are well established. And the well-established ones, like ghosts, poltergeists, things like that, I have no psychic experiences. I have no problem giving those credit. I would want in an individual case to look at them and say, so what's the evidence for this case? But these are so widely reported that I'm not natively dismissive of them. Bigfoot doesn't easily fit into those. Now, of course, Bigfoot could be an alien, could be a robot, could be an alien robot, like on the $6 Million Man show. Yeah. And I have no way of estimating the odds for that, if that were the case, because it would depend on, do aliens exist? Well, I think they probably do somewhere in the universe. The big question is, are they coming here? And are they bringing their Bigfoot robots or biological Bigfoots here? I have no way to estimate those odds. In terms of more spiritual paranormal phenomena, I think, okay, so what could explain Bigfoot sightings? And the only thing that I can plausibly think of that would allow them to manifest and then unmanifest, unless they're some kind of crypto-terrestrial that is interdimensional, would be what's known as a tulpa. A tulpa it's also called a thought form. And these are reported in some Asian cultures. They are thought to be creations of the human mind, but they then take on a life of their own and can continue to exist and influence things even when people aren't directly thinking about them. And so if tulpas are real, well, you got a lot of Bigfoot believers, Native Americans before Europeans arrived, and now Europeans. So maybe Bigfoot could be a tulpa. The problem is we don't have good evidence for tulpas. We do have good evidence for other things like poltergeists. A lot of people aren't aware of this, but poltergeists have been investigated, including in the laboratory. You can take, now poltergeists most of the time are not actually a ghost. So the name's a little bit misleading. Poltergeist is German for noisy ghost. And that's what people assumed they were until the 20th century. They just assumed that they were spirits. But by the early 20th century, the the parapsychological community began to get evidence that there's always one person, a living person, at the center of most poltergeist cases. And when we can show that that person is not hoaxing the poltergeist phenomena, they're not throwing stuff around when no one's looking, it looks like what's really going on is, and it was also noticed the people who tend to be the poltergeist agent, as they were called, tended to be under a lot of stress. And so a theory got developed that received a lot of support in the mid-20th century after a famous poltergeist case in Seaford, New York, called the Popper poltergeist case, because it was popping tops off of bottles. Parapsychologists were able to get in while the phenomena were still happening and examine the situation. And the hypothesis that has been proposed is that most poltergeists are cases of what are known as recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. So psychokinesis is mind over matter, so that's why stuff's moving around, but no one's trying to do it, so it's spontaneous, it's not intentional, and it keeps happening. So it's recurrent. So that's recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, or RSPK.
Interesting.
Well, on this hypothesis that, basically a person is so frustrated, but they feel they can't express their emotions, they start subconsciously throwing a psychokinetic fit to oops, hang on just a second.
This is a reminder. Take out the trash.
Take out the trash.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I'm not the only guy that's got to take the trash out on Wednesday.
Yeah. So anyway, what you can do if the person is, under stress and that's what's causing the poltergeist activity is you can hypothesis test. You can say, okay, let's get you some stress relief. You could take a martial arts class to vent your frustrations that way, or you can learn calming techniques like meditate and chill out, and that could relieve the phenomena. Or if you want, you can come into the lab and we can help you redirect your PK activity so you can take control of it. And so it's possible to hypothesis test to verify the RSPK hypothesis for poltergeists. Well, unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that with tulpas. So these remain anecdotal reports. And if you're using an anecdotal report of a tulpa to explain an anecdotal report of Bigfoot, you haven't really made much progress scientifically.
So tulpas are basically manifesting.
Yeah.
People are manifesting as a group. Does it have to be a group effort?
No, there are reports of tulpas that one person generates, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. It is interesting. Super interesting. I know you study the entire historic verbal and interpreting the Bible and everything, but I wanted to ask you because I know you know a little bit about the Vatican and their stance on the paranormal. What do you want to logline some of that? Because that's really interesting. I mean, for years they've had a doctrine, I would imagine, to just ignore it, right?
No.
Oh, they haven't? Okay,
No.
well, explain, because I'm completely ignorant.
In fact, the Vatican has three different types, at minimum, three different types of paranormal investigations that it itself conducts.
Wow.
One is miracle reports. Like in saint canonization causes, someone will ask a saint for their intercession, and a miracle will happen, like someone spontaneously recovers from an incurable disease. And so they'll investigate that, and they bring in medical experts first to look at the case and say, is there any scientific explanation for this? And if the answer is no, if the medical experts, who don't even have to be Catholic, in fact, I know of an atheist who from Canada, her name is Jacqueline Duffin, who she's a blood pathologist, and she was brought in on one of these cases. They didn't care she's an atheist. What they care about is her credentials as a pathologist. And she said, yeah, there's no medical explanation for this. Then if the scientists agree, they turn it over to a group of theologians to say, well, can we plausibly associate this with a saint's intercession? So miracle investigations are one kind of paranormal investigation the Vatican does. Another is saint apparitions, because Saints will, and other, spirits like people in purgatory and stuff like that, they'll appear to people.
Yeah.
And so the Vatican investigates those. In fact, they just came out with a new set of guidelines for how bishops can do those investigations. And then, of course, there's the famous exorcisms where you got to look at, okay, could this just be mental illness? Could this be a biological illness?
Yeah.
Could it be a ghost? Could it be someone's psychic powers? Or is it really a demon? And there are diagnostic criteria for those things.
Well, have they come to any conclusions on exorcisms? And
oh, sure.
Because you hear about them performing them, but do they actually admit, like in writing, we believe these are demonic possession?
Well, okay, so due to client confidentiality, they don't talk about individual cases and reveal people's names and stuff like that. But in terms of, are some of them real? Absolutely. The church has documents for, here's how you diagnose a case of demonic possession, and here's what you do to get rid of it. And those are just the three that the church itself does. The church also has no problem with a lot of other phenomena like psychic functioning. There have been doctors of the church like St. Augustine, Pope St. Gregory the Great, St. Thomas Aquinas, who believed in psychic functioning. Recent popes like Pius XI and Pius XII, both of whom reigned in the 20th century, they didn't have a problem with psychic functioning. In fact, Pius XI, was very open to dowsing. In fact, the church's most recent statement about dowsing officially permits priests to take part in dowsing experiments for scientific purposes. And it has no restrictions on what laity can do with dowsing. So the church is actually a lot more open in this area than most people realize.
That's interesting. And what about, UFOs, alien life?
Mm-hmm.
Does that go under that banner of paranormal?
Well, it would be considered paranormal, but not parapsychological. So this is where, like right now, I'm teaching a course I'm teaching Introduction to Parapsychology for the Rhine Education Center, which is at rhineedu.org.
Can you explain what parapsychology is?
So parapsychology is a field that studies three principal things. You can reduce it to two. The two are psychic functioning and the survival of human consciousness after death. But because psychic functioning has a kind of receptive component, which is what ESP is, and an active component, which is what PK is, the three areas that parapsychology studies are ESP, PK, and survival of bodily death. Now, that's a subset of the paranormal. Para is Greek for beyond or alongside. Normal means normal, and so what the paranormal is anything that our culture considers to be beyond or outside the normal. Other cultures have different definitions of what normal is. So and even our own culture in the past had different definitions. 200 years ago, if you said a ghost came and visited me, that wouldn't be viewed as weird at all. But after the rise of scientific materialism, that came to be considered not normal in our culture, as well as things like UFOs. That's considered not normal. Bigfoot, that's considered not normal. And so you can classify all of these different things as paranormal, but parapsychology only studies a limited set, and it leaves things like Bigfoot to cryptology, it leaves UFOs to ufology, and it contents itself with studying psychic phenomena and survival of bodily death.
Okay. Super interesting.
Yeah.
And this is something that I do wonder, though. Do they have any written doctrines on these things? I mean, is there anything that just states their goals or their conclusions from the Vatican officially? Yeah, because I'm just not aware of.
Well, not on Bigfoot.
No, I don't mean on Bigfoot.
On UFOs.
Just on the whole gamut of, paranormal and.
On UFOs, there aren't official documents, but they have no problem with the idea of UFOs.
Okay.
For example, and you can, find interviews, for example, with Vatican astronomers, because the Vatican runs an astronomical observatory.
Right. Yeah, it's huge, I
And
guess.
there's two of them. There's one in Italy and there's one in Arizona.
Wow.
And there are Jesuits like Brother Guy Consolmagno who talk often about about extraterrestrials and UFOs, and the church has no problem with them. They would just be other children of God. When it comes to things like psychic functioning, well, as I mentioned, you have even popes and doctors of the church who support that. It's not something the church requires people to believe. What is required to believe is that there is a spiritual world in addition to the material world, and that the two interact.
So where do you get your information? Do they have a newsletter? That I just, I wonder these things.
Well,
I don't study anything to do. I'm a Christian,
awesome.
But I'm
Good
just,
for you.
I'm very pure in kind of my thoughts about. I always feel like just do good things for people.
Mm-hmm.
Treat people the way you'd want to be treated, love people, those kind of forgive people. I'm just trying to be a good person. But I don't even know necessarily why I feel that way. I've never studied theology, and I have a friend who's a pastor, and we get into some pretty interesting conversations over some wine, right? But I'm always shocked by how little I know. And so I always wonder, is there, updates on the paranormal? Where do you get your information on the Vatican and how they feel about things?
I go to primary sources. So I read the writings of St. Augustine. I read the writings of Pope St. Gregory the Great. I read the writings of Thomas Aquinas. I read recent ones. So I will also look at secondary sources, and they provide me leads for, okay, where do I go to get the original stuff? But I want to see the original stuff. And in fact, I'm going to be teaching a course on this August. I'm supposed to be teaching for the Rhine Institute on Christianity and parapsychology. And then in the fall, I'm going to be doing world religions and parapsychology. So there's a lot of interesting stuff. And of course, you mentioned you haven't studied a lot of theology, and that's understandable. That's not everybody's calling.
Just not going to happen in this life.
It is my day job, though, so I study that all the time.
I know. Yeah, I'm just, and it's very complex. I mean, theology is not simple. It's a complex story with many characters and many things and just many events. And although most people have a handle on some of the basics, the bottom line is the story they all tell, which is be a good person, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the bottom line?
By the way, I believe I heard before I came on, you said you weren't sure what my job is as an apologist.
Right. Yeah. What is a Catholic apologist?
Okay.
Catholic apologist.
More broadly, I'm a Christian apologist, but I happen to also be a Catholic apologist.
Okay.
So an apologist is a person who defends a position. So as a Christian apologist, I defend the Christian faith. I offer evidence for it. I answer objections that people have to it. And I also do the same thing for the Catholic understanding of the Christian faith. So I offer evidence for the Catholic understanding, and I answer objections that people may have to the Catholic understanding.
So it's a lot of letters that come in to the church. Is it?
Well, it used to be a lot of letters. Now, I work for an independent ministry called Catholic Answers, and we operate with the permission of our bishop, who's also a cardinal. But we're freestanding. We don't get money from the church. We operate independently. Our website is Catholic.com because we thought ahead. And so,
did you have to buy that, Jimmy?
We did, and we bought it for like $20 when it was first
That's
available.
Funny. Okay.
But people can check out Catholic.com if they want. They can also check out my website, JimmyAkin.com, and they can check out my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/JimmyAkin, or go to the Mysterious World homepage at mysterious.fm. And if you want to get to my website or my YouTube channel, all you got to do, spell my name correctly. Jimmy with a Y, And Akin is so easy. Akin. No T's, E's, or S's, just Akin. And you get there and you find all this stuff that I have online for you for free.
Wow. I think we spelled your name wrong.
Yeah, no
Alex,
biggie. Everybody does it.
We'll change it. We'll change it.
Oh,
tonight.
you got it right on the screen.
Oh man, I don't know how that happened. Well, yes, because you spelled it.
Oh, okay.
That's like the ultimate insult. I am so sorry and embarrassed.
No,
it was my fault.
No biggie. No biggie.
I don't know what in the world. Where did I get the T? Anyhow.
Oh well, there are other people with similar names that have those add-ons.
Maybe I saw it and I. You know how sometimes you'll see somebody else misspelled it and I copied it.
Yeah, no biggie.
Yeah,
I'm used to it.
Okay, I'm glad. So.
I can understand you have an interest in last name too, and so I imagine you have people who get confused by it. So
it's bad.
We're brothers in the name.
I got called Doug Heek, just Heek, spelled Heek the other day. So it gets really bad.
Just so I hear it from the horse's mouth, how do you pronounce it?
High check.
High check. Okay.
Yeah, simple. Yeah.
Very good.
Check. It's actually pretty simple, but
yeah.
So you probably don't get asked this much. I haven't heard it in any of your interviews. Have you had any, and you got to be honest here now.
Sure.
Jimmy, have you had anything that had to go in your gray basket because it was paranormal or maybe paranormal or saw something in the sky or a bump in the night, something?
So when it comes to paranormal things, the answer is yes. I've had paranormal experiences myself. I've also investigated other people's paranormal experiences.
Okay.
In my case, probably the most vivid is I had a very vivid, realistic precognitive dream once, something I could not have predicted.
Wow.
So based on research that was done by one of the parapsychological pioneers, Louisa Rhine, she found out that when people report precognitive experiences, 60% of the time it's in the form of a realistic dream, as opposed to a symbolic dream or a conscious experience, a waking experience. Well, I had a realistic dream. It was when I was in junior high school. And I dreamed that I was in my art class. And for some reason, I was painting on a horizontal surface, not on an easel, but I was painting on a horizontal surface with purple and green tempera paint. And this guy who didn't like me, whose name was Lyndon, came up and said, "What do you think you're doing?" Well, the next morning, I told this dream to a friend of mine named Charlie, who was also in the art class. So Charlie and I then go into the art class, and that day, our teacher pulls us off of all of our current projects and says the school is having a carnival. And I agreed to have my art class paint those flats, with the cutouts where you put your face through and get your picture taken. I agreed to have my art class, my students, do those for this carnival that's coming up. And she had a bunch of big refrigerator boxes for the cutouts. So they're too big. You can't put them on an easel. So you have to put them flat on the table. She assigns me to do the Incredible Hulk. So there I am painting the Incredible Hulk's green skin and purple pants with the tempera paint. And Lyndon comes up and says, "What do you think you're doing?" And Charlie was standing right there and his mouth just fell open because there was no way to predict this. And so that's an example of a paranormal experience I've had.
Was that paranormal though? Or did you just see the future? Would that be considered paranormal by you? If somebody could predict the future.
Precognition, it depends on how you're doing it. If you're predicting the future just by mental calculation, well, that's not paranormal. That's like weather predictions. But if you're predicting something you have no way to naturally predict, like I didn't know about this carnival.
Right.
I didn't assign myself the Incredible Hulk. How did I know it was going to be with those colors? This was all stuff out of my hands. Now, it could have been, so I mentioned ESP. There's 3 major types of ESP, or extrasensory perception. precognition, telepathy, and clairvoyance. So this could be, it looked like precognition because I'm dreaming about something that's in the future that I haven't had happen yet. There is some chance, though, it could have been telepathy. Like if while I'm unconscious, I'm reading my art teacher's mind about what she's planning on doing. Well, okay, I could learn about the flats. I could learn about, I'm going to do the Incredible Hulk. I could learn stuff like that. But that wouldn't have told me what Lyndon was going to do. So this looks more like precognition than telepathy. Yeah. But either way, it looks like a genuinely psychic experience.
Well, doesn't that mean if that was real, that the future already exists, right?
Well, I think it does. But I think also that precognition is not detecting the exact future. I think what precognition does, and this is actually, there have been studies on this, people can avoid what they precognitively perceive. For example, one of the famous cases that Louisa Ryan recorded was of a woman who was asleep in her bed, and she had a dream that in the other room where she's got a baby in a crib, there was a chandelier above the baby, and she dreamed that the chandelier, even though it seemed to be stable to everyone, suddenly fell and crushed the crib. And she was so alarmed by this dream, she got up and went and got the baby out of the crib. And then the chandelier did fall and crush the crib. Whoa. And so this is what's known as an intervention paradox, where you intervene to change what you saw. So it looks like what people are actually detecting is not a fixed future that cannot be changed, but a probable future,
a probable one
that can be changed. And that actually is what you would expect on evolutionary grounds. Because if you think, in evolutionary terms, what's going to help an organism? Learning about a fixed future it can't change, or learn about a flexible future it can change. Well, if I'm a caveman and I dream I'm just going to get eaten by a cave bear tomorrow and there's nothing I can do about it, well, that doesn't help me. It's not going to help me survive and reproduce. So it's not an evolutionary benefit. But if I learn about a probable future where tomorrow there's a cave bear sniffing around the mouth of the cave and I get eaten, well, then I can, if that's just a probable future, then I can avoid the mouth of the cave when the cave bear is sniffing around, and that will let me survive and reproduce. So there's an evolutionary benefit to having probable future sensitivity rather than fixed future sensitivity. And that seems to correspond with the data we have about how these experiences work.
It's almost like an envelope. It's just, that's so weird. So let me tell you about a thing that happens to me every day.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just curious what your take is on it. So every day I drive to the end of my block. There's a parkway there. It's just a nice scenic parkway. I get to the stop sign, and every day we've now gone up to almost 1,000 days in a row. Someone's right there, instantly crossing the road in front of my car, walking, riding a bike, walking their dog. And yet you can look down the road, nobody. You can see a mile down each direction. Mm-hmm. There's never anybody coming. But yet that timing it's so beyond coincidence that it's kind of made me think, God, maybe we are living in some kind of damn matrix. And, about a year ago, I told Yvette about this, and, because she hadn't paid attention. I mean, who really pays attention to that stuff? But I started paying attention to it. Like, this is not right. And then, of course, now she knows. And so now when we go to, it's the same thing. In a lot of cases, it's two people crossing from both directions, and yet you look both ways. Where do I put this?
Well, so I, not having done an investigation of this, I can't offer a firm opinion, but I can tell you how I would investigate it if I were doing one.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is what's known as a synchronicity. That's a term that came from, by the way, someone asked a question I just saw about Vatican time television. remind me of that, Alex, and I'll answer that.
Sure.
But to just deal with your experience, Doug, it's what's known as a synchronicity. That's a term that came from the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, who defined synchronicity as a meaningful coincidence that has no normal explanation. So it's a coincidence that you find meaning in. This is important to you because you've noticed it, you've taken note of it, and you keep seeing it. So there are a variety of possible explanations for synchronicities like this. As always, I would make a list of what are the normal ones. Could it just be random chance coincidence? And that's something that could be studied by observing this intersection at the times of day you approach it and calculating the odds of what are the chances of the kind of reports that you're seeing. It then, if it's not beyond random chance, then it could be that that this is just you're noticing it now. I would also want to look at how often does it happen when you approach this? Could you notice it when it happens, and other times you just kind of go through the intersection and don't notice it when there's no one there?
notice it every time.
Well, that's something I'd want to check out. If it's not simply due to your attention and it's beyond random chance, then you could have someone playing a hoax on you, but that seems very unlikely. And if it's not any of the natural things that could explain it, then maybe there's a paranormal explanation for it. Like you, for some reason, are subconsciously, without even consciously necessarily wanting this to happen, you want to see this phenomenon because it's so interesting. And so you are subconsciously using precognition or clairvoyance to tell when someone is approaching this, and you time your exits, your departures to coincide with that. So those would be some of the possible explanations. I'm sure I could think of more with time, but those are some of the possible explanations that I would want to investigate if I were doing this formally.
Yeah, it's almost worth it. It's just, it goes beyond chance. And here's the other thing. There's a stop sign there. And so if I was to go beyond most people will stop a little beyond the stop sign. I would be killing people. Because they're always just zoom right in front of me, zoom, bikes, little kids, people. It's and in many cases it's people coming from both directions. But so weird when you look down the parkway both ways. Nobody ever. It's just empty.
Wow.
So that's weird. Anyhow, that was a big deal. I was just curious on your thoughts. I actually was amazed by your answers. Absolutely amazing that you can come up with all that and that quick, completely caught off guard.
It's just applying the principles to a new situation.
What I could do with your brain.
Well, you're most kind. By the way, someone had asked a question about the so-called Vatican time television or whatever.
Yeah.
That's known as the chronovisor. And I did a whole episode of Mysterious World on it. And so what I do in an episode of Mysterious World typically is I lay out the claims about a mystery. That's our background segment. Then we have the faith and reason segments where we say what would reason tell us about this mystery and what would the faith tell us about this mystery. And so unlike a lot of mystery shows, we're not just about generating wonder and imagine what if. We actually try to solve the mystery. And although I don't hugely want to spoil it because it's interesting how we get there, I conclude that the chronovisor is very unlikely to be real. And you can listen to the episode to find out why.
Okay. It's interesting. Any other questions people have? Just throw them up in caps here. Have you seen anything else other than that dream that you had that came to such perfect fruition? Have you seen a UFO, a ghost, anything?
I've not seen UFOs or ghosts. I do have, I have had synchronistic experiences.
Okay.
And some of these appear to be precognitive. One of the things I've discerned, and I've talked about this before, but one of the things I've discerned is very often I will be studying or thinking about a topic that is obscure, that is not in the news, and that nobody I know is talking about. And then within 48 hours, I will be asked about that topic professionally.
Wow.
And this happened so frequently that I actually started keeping a spreadsheet, and it seemed to like happen a couple times a month. So at some point in the future, I may sit down and try to figure out, so what's the null hypothesis here? What's the chance that this could be just due to random chance?
You sound like me.
Uh-huh. Do you have the same thing happen?
Well, with the pedestrians, it's similar.
Yeah, it is similar. Yeah. So my first thought was, well, maybe God has given me a nudge to help me serve better as a Christian apologist, so that I'll be prepared to answer the questions I'm going to be called to answer, professionally, to help people. And I also thought, well, maybe this is precognitive, because it's not always in a religious context. Sometimes it's connected with other non-religious things. But then I don't have to choose between them, because God can elevate natural abilities and use them for his purposes. So this could be God using a natural precognitive ability to help prepare me to be of greater service to other people.
Interesting.
Jimmy.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, have you ever had an out-of-body experience or lucid dreams?
I have lucid dreams. I have not had an out-of-body experience. I have taken a class in how to have out-of-body experiences, but I haven't done it myself. I do have lucid dreams periodically. So for people who may not be aware, lucid dreams is when you become aware that you're dreaming.
Right.
And I had one just recently. In fact, I dreamed I was driving to another town in my pickup, and all of a sudden I woke up in this other town in an alleyway, and my pickup was all wrecked. And it was just, incredibly broken. And I thought, this is horrible. I don't like this. And then I realized, wait a minute, I was driving to this one town, but I'm in another town, and there's no way I could have driven that whole way asleep. So that discontinuity clued me into the fact that I must be asleep, because that would explain how I could be driving to one town, end up in an alleyway in another town in a wrecked pickup truck. And that told me, oh, so I'm just asleep, and my pickup truck in the real world is just fine, and I don't have to worry about it being all smashed.
What a relief.
It was.
And then did you start to fly?
Not in this. I also have flying dreams, and it is, I'm convinced that,
What do those mean?
Well, they mean different things for different people. I'm convinced, and this is just my personal opinion, but I'm convinced that in the resurrection of the dead, when God puts us all back together, I think we'll be able to fly, because it is so intuitive how to do it in my dreams. I basically take a little leap, and then I control my body's center of gravity so that I avoid hitting the floor, and then I can go wherever I want.
You're giving me chills. I have the same kind of dreams.
Lots of people have flying dreams.
It's just a leap. It's just a little. I had one here about a week ago, and it's just so cool. You wake up and you're like, I can fly. And then you're like, no, I can't.
Not yet. One day.
So do you think those are memories that we might have?
I think they're intuitions of what human nature is capable of doing. And there are people who even in this life have levitated. Saint Teresa of Avila and Saint Joseph of Cupertino, for example, were both prolific levitators that were witnessed by many, many people. And so I think that it is possible for people to do this. Not everybody, and not everybody in this life, but after we get our bodies back, we're not going to have the limitations of this life.
Yeah, it just seems like I've done it. These dreams are so real and so amazing. Do you believe there's any possibility in reincarnation? Is that something that's ever addressed in the Bible in any form? So, obviously, it is with the Christ rising again, but that's not really reincarnation, because he's right. But it's a rebirth. Is it? Anything there that you want to talk about reincarnation?
So there's two things. First, let me address it from the reason perspective, and then I'll address it from the faith perspective. I actually did a two-parter on Mysterious World about current reincarnation research.
Okay.
And in the first part, I described the state of the research, and in the second part, I talked about what could explain the research. So there are cases where someone appears to have things like memories of a past life.
Yep.
Now, these modern reincarnation researchers don't focus on adults because adults have been exposed to so much information that they don't even remember. You know, they've read books and seen movies and TV shows and all this kind of stuff. That a lot of what gets reported with adults who have memories of past lives, it turns out they just got it from a movie or something. And these cases are very hard to solve. Solving a case in reincarnation research means you've looked into it and found a real historical person that corresponds to the memories being reported.
Right.
So what reincarnation researchers do today is they tend to look at small children, like between the ages of 2 and 5, who report memories of a past life. And then the kids tend to forget about it between like the ages of 5 and 8. Most of them lose these memories. But there are cases where they've focused on small children who have not been exposed to what an adult has been exposed to. And they do come up with information that is beyond random chance that, connects them somehow to a previous person. The question is, what explains that? And there are 3 principal types of theories. The first principle, and you can call them survival theories, residue theories, and psychic theories.
Okay.
So a survival theory is, there is like a soul or an Atman, to use a Hindu term or whatever you want to call it, that when the person dies, the soul or Atman goes to another body and reincarnates. And that's true reincarnation. This view is common in Hinduism, for example. On the other hand, there are residue theories where it's not a complete soul that migrates from one body to another, but there's some kind of residue of a person that goes from one body to another. And this kind of theory is very common in Buddhism. In Buddhism, they don't believe you have a stable Atman or a stable soul. They have a doctrine called Anatman, which means no self or no soul. And so what they do when they talk about reincarnation is they compare it to how one candle, when it's going out, can light another candle. The 2 candles are separate. They're distinct individuals. They're not the same candle, but one can transfer something, some kind of residue to another person who then inherits those memories. So that's a residue theory. Then there are psychic theories that say basically there's a psychic connection between someone living in the present and someone living in the past, and the memories get transferred through that psychic connection. And there are variations on how these work, but those are the 3 basic theories.
So one's like almost like a telephone, like you're getting memories from someone in a different timeline.
Exactly. Now, so those are the theories. So that's the reason perspective. Looking at it from the faith perspective, you will sometimes hear people say Christianity used to teach reincarnation, and that is not true. From the New Testament forward, it has always been what Jesus is our exemplar. What happened with him is going to happen with us. He died, and then he rose from the dead, and in the same body. And that's going to be what happens with us, where God's going to put us back together. You have this all over the New Testament. St. Paul talks about this. He's writing, in the AD 50s. So this is just like 17 years after the resurrection. John writes about this in the AD 60s and so forth. So this is the Christian understanding. We're going to get resurrected, not reincarnated. That's explicitly addressed in the book of Hebrews, where the author of Hebrews says that it is appointed for man once to die. So he's rejecting like Greco-Roman theories of reincarnation. It's appointed for man once to die, and then comes the judgment. So we have an explicit rejection of reincarnation in Hebrews. And so that's how I would answer from the faith perspective. If you ask me how I would explain the difficult cases, which of the three theories do I prefer? Well, for faith reasons, I don't think it's actual survival. It could be residue or it could be psychic. I have a version of the psychic theory that I haven't seen proposed anywhere else. I plan to write about it, but I think it explains these cases better than the soul theories or the residue theories. So the psychic link theory is my preferred view.
And can you expound on that just a little bit more?
Sure. So one of the things that's been noted about childhood reincarnation cases is there is a startling number of people who report violent deaths.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the previous person died violently, way beyond what you would expect based on the actual violent death rate. And so one of the things that occurred to me is, okay, all we need to have happen is a link that forms between a current person and a previous person. Doesn't matter who forms that link. It could be that, let's say it's the previous person who reaches forward. And these reincarnation cases tend to happen in cultures that believe in reincarnation. So if I'm a believer in reincarnation in one of these cultures and I'm dying a violent death, I may, in a desperate attempt to survive, psychically reach out into the future and find someone to reincarnate as and impress my memories on that person.
Mm.
On the other hand, another thing that's been noted is children in reincarnation cases tend to report past lives where they were of higher social status, where they were richer or in a higher social caste. And so let's suppose I'm a child in India, and my family is, let's say, from the Lal caste, which is not the highest caste. That's the Brahmins. Well, guess what? If I can come up with the memories of a Brahmin, I can demand special treatment. I can say, I'm not a Lal, I'm a Brahmin. You need to treat me like I'm a Brahmin. I need special food. I need special deference. People need to obey me. And if I can convince the previous person's family that I'm their guy reborn, then I've got a backup plan in case my current family ever goes bad. So you could see how a child in a difficult situation could reach back into the past and find someone to connect with and get the memories they need to be able to do a reasonable impression of that person. Also, different cultures have different beliefs about reincarnation. So, for example, the Druze culture, they're an offshoot of Islam. The Druze culture in the Middle East believes that when you reincarnate, you have to stay the same sex. If you're a man, you are always a man in every life. If you're a woman, you are always a woman in every life. But not other cultures don't agree with that. If you're in India, you can reincarnate as either sex. So how do we explain these cultural differences? Well, it's harder to explain them if you have a soul that's going between lifetimes, because the soul presumably isn't limited by our earthly perspective on things. So, if it turns out the Druze are right, but I'm in India and I die and my soul is moving around in the afterlife, well, I'll find out the Druze were right. I have to come back as the same sex. Or if I'm Druze and I die and my soul is in the afterlife and it turns out the Indians are right, well, then I ought to find out the Indians are right and I can come back as either sex. So how do we explain these differences? Well, since the beliefs are held by the living, it makes sense to explain the differences we're seeing in terms of the living. So if I'm a Druze and I'm dying a violent death and believe I can only come back as a boy, I'm going to reach out into the future for a boy. Or if I'm a Druze child and I'm told I can only have been a boy, I'm going to reach back in the past and find a boy. Or if I'm in India and I'm told it can be either one, then I'm going to reach forward to someone. It could be either one. Or I'm going to reach back and find someone. It could be either one. So I actually think the psychic link theory explains all the data, including the cultural differences that otherwise are harder to explain.
Is it possible maybe memories come from our complex genetic code?
Well, it's hard to see how they would. I mean, we have certain basic
I
structures.
mean, they have kind of proved it in animals, sort of.
Well, so yeah, there is something like this. Now, in our genetic code, there are patterns of thought that are programmed into us. They're not exactly memories, but like humans have a native instinct to learn language, and that's in us on a genetic level. Then there's the epigenetic level, which is it controls which genes are activated or not. And this is where we have this is kind of a cutting edge area in biology, but we do have evidence that you can sort of have heritable memories. They're not conscious memories, but for example, one of the experiments they did was they took a bunch of rats and they would expose the rats to the smell of cherry blossom. And whenever they exposed the rats to the smell of cherry blossom, they gave them an electric shock. And the rats would learn to tense up whenever they smelled cherry blossom because they know they're about to get an electric shock. Okay, then they let the rats get busy, and then they tested their offspring. They would expose the offspring to cherry blossom, but not give them an electric shock. And what they found was that the children that had been the offspring that had been born to the generation that got shocked, they would also tense up at the smell of cherry blossom, which looks like not that their genes are changing, but their gene expression epigenetically is changing, and that is being inherited. So they don't have a conscious reason why they don't remember being shocked. They're not like their parents, but they have a native fear, an inherited fear of.
Well, it shows something can be transferred genetically,
or epigenetically, technically.
Yeah.
On the biological level.
So that's interesting, though. I mean, that's I remember reading about that, and I was like, oh, that one really took me for a loop. That somehow some types of memories can be transferred, but like you said, they're not like memories; they're more instinctive things.
Yeah.
But that's still that's a fascinating example you gave. What about? I mean, is anybody really not afraid to die, do you think?
Oh, yeah. There are people who are not afraid to die.
Really?
Yeah. A major area of research, and this is one I've been doing a lot of research on lately, is deathbed visions, near-death experiences, and after-death communications. They are all three linked, and they provide powerful evidence of survival. I can say a little bit about it now. I don't know how late y'all want to go tonight.
Oh, I'm fine. We're fine. Yeah, go.
Well, I'll say a little bit about it now, but if you'd like, I've seen some people whose comments they're asking for.
We want you back.
Okay, great. We can talk more about it next time. But
okay.
But basically, in many deathbed visions, people will have they'll be distressed because of their physical state and their emotional state, and they'll be dying and they don't like it and they're in pain.
And don't you think someone who's dying, the biggest pain and fear would be missing their children and
certainly
missing their
big
family?
And it's certainly one of the big ones. And then in many people, a switch flips and their pain shuts off and they start to see sometimes a door or some kind of other barrier, and they start seeing people who they know who are deceased coming to welcome them into the afterlife, or sometimes angels. And they get these feelings of peace and joy, and they can't wait to get over to the other side. And these people are not afraid of dying. Similarly, many people who have, now this is not 100%, but it looks like something like 80% of people who have near-death experiences where they clinically die or almost clinically die and come back, they report positive experiences. And in fact, I'm even aware of cases where, the doctor was able to restart the person's heart and the patient socked the doctor in the nose because they were having such a wonderful time on the other side. They didn't want to come back. But that's about 80% of cases. It looks like about another 20% of the cases involve negative elements, and some of them are actually described as hellish. Like one woman came back and just said, all she would say is, I just saw Dante's Inferno. And then there are after-death communications where people appear to their loved ones, and this is astonishingly common. People don't talk about it a lot, but between 40 and 50% of the population reports having a spontaneous after-death communication with a loved one at some point during their life. And the standard messaging that they get is, it's okay, don't mourn me, I'm fine, it's really good here, we'll be united again, and stuff like that. Now, there are negative themes in here, particularly in near-death experiences. Like I said, about 20% of them are negative. We have a little bit of negative in the after-death communications. Not hugely bad, but like, please forgive me, or please pray for me, or, an indication that the person could be being purified, or in what Catholics would call purgatory, but not hell. But the people who are in hell probably don't get to reappear that often. I'm not aware of deathbed visions that contain negative elements, but, maybe the people who are going to hell don't get the vision. So there are things you could debate in this area, but that's kind of a general sketch. And there are people, especially who have had deathbed visions or near-death experiences. They're not afraid of dying anymore because they saw it, or they had it happen to them, and they have firsthand experience.
It's interesting. Obviously, we've all met, heard, seen, felt evil people.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do you think are roaming around on this planet as a percentage of almost pure evil people? As a percentage. Have you ever thought about that?
It's going to depend on how you define evil. Like,
somebody who could take the life of somebody, just anybody, for not even care.
Well, okay, so a psychopath could do that. Psychopathy is where a person has a defective sense of empathy.
Yeah.
And there are gradations on the psychopathy level.
Are they not evil?
Well, that's the thing, is if psychopathy, it's a medical condition, it may be correlated with specific things that have gone wrong in a person's brain. So if by evil you mean a person who does evil things, or could do evil things, well, then the percentage is going to be a lot higher. But if you mean someone who will voluntarily do evil things when they are not a psychopath natively, but they've smothered their conscience so that they don't feel empathy when they should, well, then that's going to be a smaller percentage, but there's still going to be people like that.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about, have you ever wondered what percentage on the planet are people good, or, a little more on the others, they've crossed the center line on being a bad person. Have you thought about that ever?
Oh, sure. Unfortunately, a lot of this is anecdotal and debatable, and I don't have a good way to estimate.
No,
I think most people are, I think we all need God's forgiveness because we're all sinners. But I think that taking that into account, I think most people are basically decent.
Okay, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. With that, we're gonna wrap it up. We definitely got to have you back. God, I could talk to you forever. Man, I just love your brain. You really.
You're too kind.
You're a very brilliant person.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, you really are. Alex will get you rebooked. We'll do it this summer here.
Sure.
Maybe in July. It'd be great to have you back, and we can kind of pick up where we left off. So remember, everybody, somewhere in this world is something really incredible. It's just waiting for you to find it, know it, and accept it. So with that, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Love you. Good night.
I call you up in the middle of the night, been bothered by dreams, ain't feeling alright. You give me comfort, say just give it some time. By the end of our talk, I'm feeling just fine. You and I will